Welcome to the Fill Your Cups podcast. We're your hosts, Morgan
and Bailey.
Hey guys! Oops. Did not plan that. But hello, welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we are doing book recommendations. We're really excited about these. We think that we have a lot of fun ones for you. And winter is such a good time to read books, I feel like.
It is.
I feel like it's a big reading month or reading season for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're trapped indoors. You can't do as much outside. I feel like in the summer and the fall, you're always doing social activities and whatnot.
Yes, when it's the summertime, I'm convinced that I'm like out of my reading phase or out of my reading habits, and then like the winter hits, I'm like, oh, I'm back again.
Back, baby.
Like, I'm here.
Yes, so hopefully this will help you, especially if reading more is on your list of 2025 goals or ins and outs or resolutions. We would love to hear if it is on your list of resolutions or ins and outs, and what else is on your ins and outs, resolutions, goals for 2025. It still is early in the year, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get too deep into the episode, though, we do have a shout out. So Morgan and I, as I'm sure most of you know, are in a book club, and we kind of just wanted to shout out our book club in general and just say how much we love you guys and how, I don't know about for you, but I definitely think that book club is something that has changed a lot of things in my life for me. It's made me more comfortable with who I am. It's made me have great female friendships, and you get to do all of that while reading books together, and I just think it's so much fun. I feel like a lot of times our book club's like first hour spent talking about books, second hour spent just gabbing.
Yeah.
So we're giving a shout out to our book club. We love you ladies, and we're thankful for you guys, and can't wait to go into 2025 for the book club year.
Definitely, yeah. I love book club so much. It fills our cups every month. It really is just super cup filling, and I do feel like every time I tell a guy that I'm in a book club, they're like, so do you actually talk about the book, or do you just like drink wine the whole time? And I'm like, no, we actually talk about the book. And I'm like, sometimes we drink wine, but
no, we get so into the books.
Yes, super into the books.
So into them. People, I mean, a lot of times we do make a lot of similarities and draw a lot of conclusions from our lives into the books. Like, oh, this character reminds me of so-and-so, or I can't imagine if I had a friend like this, or things like that. So it is so fun. I did want to let our listeners know as well that if you're listening to that and you're like, man, I really want to join a book club, but you're not able to find one, we do have a kind of virtual-ish one where we share our book club episodes on our podcast. So be sure to check those out and follow along if you're looking for a book club to join.
Absolutely, yes. And one of the reasons that I feel like book club is so cup filling, and I feel like a lot of the book club members say this a lot of the time, that we may not have like a ton in common, but when you have a common topic that's different, it's kind of fun to have just like a unique thing to talk with other women about. And I feel like, I mean, our group is only women, but I feel like I don't know, I feel like that's just a really nice thing, and people have echoed that sentiment that it's something to connect on that's just different from the everyday. So I really love book club.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, but that's our shout out.
What's filling your cup today?
I was just about to ask you. Oh crap, do we normally fill your cup first?
Yeah, but it doesn't matter.
See, well, filling my cup today is some water, but I do have an energy packet in there because I've still got some plans for the day.
Yeah.
And I'm planning on making the most of it, so I've got some caffeine, but I've also got my water, so I'm friggin' ready. What is filling your cup?
Nice. I already had a little bit of an extra dose of caffeine before you came over, so now I have a caffeine-free one of those Arbonne Fizzes that Julia has.
Yeah.
And I have been wanting to try the caffeine-free versions. I think there's only 2 compared to the caffeinated ones, but this one's blackberry. I don't think I love it by itself, but I did have some of Julia's last time she was over, and we mixed it with like the blackberry Zevia.
Oh yeah.
And it was pretty good. So I think that if I mix it with something else, it'd be good.
You guys are making mocktails.
Yeah, it's kind of got more of a tea vibe.
Ooh,
so I think that that's why I don't like it as much, because I am not a big tea person. So
that's fair. Neither am I. I can't really do it.
Yeah, but I think if people really like sweet iced tea or flavored iced tea, they would like this. So
I hear ya.
Yeah. So it's the blackberry caffeine-free Arbonne Fizz.
Okay, I love that. Well, we're excited to get into our episode. Like Morgan said, we are doing our book recommendations. So I know as it's the beginning of the year, a lot of people might have a resolution for reading more books this year, or if you've set up your own reading goal and you're trying to read 50 books or something like that this year, I'm really excited to kind of share some of our favorites and books that have helped both you and I get back into reading or keep us in reading, or just books that we've really enjoyed this past year.
Yes. Also, something before we dive into our recommendations, something that you can do is add us on Goodreads. I'm trying to pull up right now what my actual profile is because I never can remember. But it's fun. It's fun because Goodreads. Well, okay. So some of our book group uses Fable as well. I've had some issues with Fable, but we won't get into those. But regardless, Goodreads and Fable are both really useful tracking apps that you can use to track your books throughout the year. Fable, especially if you're first starting, I do recommend Fable because it has some really pretty cute things that you can track, and you can upload to your stories, and it's really adorable. It's very modern, whereas Goodreads looks like an old HTML website, basically.
Looks like it hasn't been touched since 2008.
It's like the old Facebook, if you remember that. But because I've logged so much on Goodreads, I still use Goodreads, and that's where you can set your goal and whatnot. But you can also go and follow people, and then that way you can see what kinds of books they liked and what kinds of, and you can just get ideas for yourself. So I do like it for that. I think my name is literally just Morgan Welch.
I think it is too.
We can share it on our Instagram as well.
Oh yeah.
Both of our Goodreads profiles if you want to.
And we can share it in the description of this episode.
Yes.
So if you're wanting to, just go there, click on our names real quick. But yes, whatever you just said, you get to see what your friends are reading and things like that. If that is how I find most of my books. Most of the books I'm going to read next is because I'm oh, so-and-so just read this book. I'd be interested to check that one out.
Me too.
You get a lot of Discover Weekly books and things like that on Goodreads. And so I have found so many books that way. And I just love Goodreads.
Yes. But if you are first starting, I do like Fable because it does.
That's cute.
I did import all my Goodreads into Fable just to do the end of the year reading wrapped and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a good platform as well. I just had issues because it didn't transfer all my Goodreads and blah, 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 whatever. Yeah. So anyway, that was kind of a tangent, but it kind of goes with it, especially if you're starting out the year. I feel have you ever heard that, I just heard this for the first time, that the second Friday in January is called Quitter's Day because by that day, most people have already quit on their New Year's resolutions.
No.
Yeah. But I do feel a book resolution or a book goal, you probably wouldn't have quit on it that fast by then because different from an exercise goal, Yeah. You're not sitting there oh, I wanted to read 12 books this year and I haven't read one by the second Friday.
Yeah, because you have 12 months to catch up.
Exactly. Yeah. So I feel you're less likely to quit on a reading goal at that point, but unless maybe the goal was reading every day of the week or something like that. Yeah, but
definitely.
Depending on the goal. But anyway, so at this point in time, hopefully you have not quit on your reading goal. But I will say when I was just looking at, how is this important for life? Because we always like to tie this back into how this is important for life. We like to tie this into how it's important to life and everything, but I was looking up, we all hear that there's so many benefits of reading, but the top ones that I found were that it's really good for your brain. So we talk about longevity a lot on this podcast, I feel habits that you can do now and sustain over time to lead to a cup-filled life.
Yeah.
Your whole life.
Yeah.
So one of them is helping your brain. It helps with memory and concentration, focus, which I feel is even more important today than it used to be.
Oh my God, it's so important. The focus especially.
Yes.
Just with all of our apps all the time and TV shows moving so fast and
instant gratification and dopamine hits that we get from whatever apps and all that.
Yes.
So those are that's a category that it helps. Mental well-being because it helps you relax and it helps you destimulate, which again are having our phones and social media and things like that can be very overstimulating.
Yeah.
We live in a super overstimulating environment these days, There's lots of noise and lots of Anyway, so it can help with destimulation, and especially before bed, it can help you with having better sleep, which is good for your well-being. And then the last thing that I thought was so interesting is it shows to help people who read more are shown to have more empathy.
Aww.
And better communication skills because they're exposed to other points of view regularly.
Wow. I actually really like that.
I didn't think about that, but I was like, that makes sense, because if you're reading about someone whose perspective is really different from your own, or someone who has a very different life from you, which often characters do, or someone who thinks differently than you, then you would start thinking a little bit more about how someone else might process something.
Absolutely. Like, and in books, if you do have mindsets and characters that are different than how you are, you're like inside of a mindset.
Yeah.
Like, and inside of that person's point of view. So that's really cool. I've never really thought about that.
Me neither, but I thought it was fascinating.
That is.
Yeah.
I
So
really love that.
all that to say, it's a great goal to have. We love it if you're reading more. It doesn't have to be 60 or 75 books or even a book a month. Just make your goal and
just get into reading.
exactly. Yeah.
It just changes so many things.
It's worth it. So I feel like we should start with, we're going to kind of go through categories of books so that if you're looking for a particular genre, you can get some of our best recommendations. But first, I feel like if someone hasn't been reading for a while, I feel like most people, it's like, oh yeah, I really used to like to read in high school, but then in college I stopped reading because I had to read so many textbooks and it was no longer fun.
Yeah.
And I spent all my reading time on those, and then now I'm an adult and I want to get back into reading, but I don't know where to start.
Absolutely.
Where would you start then?
My first book, and I feel like if experienced readers are listening to this, I'm going to lose all credibility, but this was the book that literally got me to start reading again and open everything up for me again, was Verity by Colleen Hoover. And I loved that book. It's like a great amount of thriller with spice, with romance. There's just a lot in it, and I like the way that it's written because it's a very easy read. So that is the first book I always recommend to people who don't really know where to start, are kind of scared to start reading again because they're scared they're going to get bored. I'm like, pick up Verity by Colleen Hoover. You'll fly through it.
It's on my where to start list as well. And I actually think it might have been the one that got me back into reading. I think I read it in
your copy.
Yeah, I think I read it in 24 hours. And I don't care if it discredits us, because there are so many people that I know that started reading again after reading that book.
Right?
And even though it, like, you know, it was a trend and it's like, oh, it's a trend on social media and whatever, I don't care. It was a trend for a reason, and it is so loved for a reason. It gets so many people back into reading, so I think it's totally fine. Another one that was really, really popular that I feel like a lot of people love and is a pretty quick read is Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo.
I love that book.
Yes, it's very deep, but it's also still a pretty easy read. I wouldn't call it historical fiction. It's almost more like contemporary or drama or something like that.
Yeah.
It has a little bit of historical
It's
drama.
just set in like a 1960s or is it even earlier than that?
I don't remember.
I think it's like 50s, 60s Hollywood.
Yeah.
So you kind of get that historical feel, but it's not a historical fiction.
Yeah. And going further past that, I would say it would be a pretty safe bet to pick up a Taylor Jenkins Reid book for your first one back in a while.
Yes.
And you'd probably be pretty okay.
Yes, especially the ones that are in her kind of universe of Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, because then you've got like Malibu Nights with that one. Malibu Rising.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Malibu Rising with that one. And like a lot of her books have characters that cross mingle, which I think is so fun when authors do that.
Yeah.
Because it's such a fun, like, oh, I know this character from this book. And
Yeah.
so cute. One that I absolutely loved and started reading like pretty early was Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. I think is how you
love
say
that
her name.
one. Yes.
I loved that book. It's definitely a romance book, which is funny because that's not my favorite genre, but this is one of my favorite books. I do think that whenever you're reading, sometimes it's right place, right time. I actually think all the time it's right place, right time. Like,
save that one for the summer.
oh yeah, save it for the summer. Save it for whenever your heart is needing a love story.
Yeah.
Like whenever you're needing that. I needed it for some reason. Whenever I was reading it, I was like, I probably had read way too many thrillers and was like, I'm kind of messed up. Like, I need a good love story. And this one was good. Yes. And it's funny because this book's not even super wholesome. Like, there's a lot of bad words, I guess. There's a lot of fucked up shit that happens in this book.
Yeah.
But it's so good.
I agree. Yeah, I also put Daisy Jones and the Six on here. Is that Taylor Jenkins Reid as well?
It is.
I thought it was.
And it's part of like that kind of universe. So you get the same characters.
Yeah, and I think that the reason that this one would be good or bad, so determine this. Mm-hmm. Some people don't like it because the format is interview style. Yes. But if you can get past it, like the first 20 pages, I feel like what I hear from most people is they were really set off or really taken aback by the interview style. Mm-hmm. But because it's in that different format, after you've gotten past the kind of surprise factor of that, 20 pages in, it's a very quick read. Yes. And it's another one like Evelyn Hugo where there's multiple characters. It's a very different world than we're used to because it follows like an older rock band. Like I think it's kind of like Fleetwood Mac, that kind of time period of rock, soft rock almost band. Yeah. And it's really, really good. So that was the other one on my coming back to reading list.
Definitely. I really only have one more on my coming back to reading list, and it is more of a thriller. And I don't know if this is necessarily a coming back to reading or if it's more of a you have to read this book, but it's got to be at the beginning of your reading journey. Mm-hmm. Is Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. I love that book. It is not everyone's cup of tea, but I loved it. And I do feel like if I read it now, it wouldn't hit the same as the way it did back when it was like my 5th book that I had read.
Yeah.
But I absolutely love that book. It's got such different twists in there than I was used to. And it's kind of dark and kind of edgy, but so good.
I haven't read it. Did you know that?
I did know that, yeah, because you watched the movie and you were like, I hated the movie.
I watched the movie, absolutely hated it. It's one of those movies where, and I don't know if the book is the same way, some people have said that there are differences, but if something doesn't end, like if nothing ends well, like there's no redeeming qualities, there's nothing good that comes out of a book, or movie, I just am unhappy.
Yeah.
And I felt like that one was so effed up, and I read another of hers, Gillian Flynn, toward the beginning of my rereading journey.
Yeah.
Sharp Objects.
I just read that
one. Okay. Yeah. What did you think?
I liked it, but I gave it like 3 stars or something.
Yeah.
So it was fine.
Yeah. I did not like it. I think it's like a 2-star on my. It might even be a 1. I'm not sure.
Is it because it's like too freaky and like you're like unhappy while reading it, or because you're like, this book just sucked?
Yeah, so all of the above. I did not like the process of reading it, and I've learned now that I should have just probably put it down before I finished it. But it was short, so I liked having a short book at the beginning of my reading journey, but it was too freaky. I've really learned that a lot of the physical stuff in books, like physical either self-harm or abuse of others, if it's really graphic, it's really hard for me to stomach.
And things that can be real
can
be really hard to read.
And that's a big thing in the thriller genre that I have to be careful with, because I had bad dreams about that a long time after reading it, and I did read it very fast, but then it was another one of her books where you get to the end and you're like, what was the point? Like, nothing good happened, nothing redeeming happened, nobody's happy. Yeah. It was just, So anyway, all that to say, I could totally see Gone Girl without having read it. I could totally see it being a good one to jump back in if you like the psychological and suspense and all of that. And
if that's more your thing.
Multiple, like, climaxes throughout the book, you know? Yeah. I'm sure I could see that, but...
Definitely. I feel like that kind of takes us into our first category. Let's start off with thrillers. That is, my favorite genre. I don't know what it says about me, but I love thrillers. I just like books that kind of make it feel super fun to read, and for some reason other books are not like that, but thrillers are like that for me.
Yeah.
So that's what I would definitely classify the Gone Girl as. The only book that has ever given me nightmares, and I've read some fucked up books, but the only ones that's ever given me nightmares is called Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. Have you read that one?
Yes.
I cannot believe you've read that book because that book is messed up. And now we're kind of into, these are not great like starter books, although any book is a great starter book, but these are more like if you're just looking for books to add to.
Maybe I haven't read that one. Maybe I've read Pretty Things.
Oh, I think we've had this conversation before.
Okay.
Yeah, because Pretty Girls has like...
No, I haven't read that.
Oh, okay. I don't think you should. I really do not. I would not put it on Morgan's. I would put it on, if you're a listener and you love thriller, read this book. It was insane.
I read Pretty Things, so not Pretty Girls.
Makes sense. Well, Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter, read it. Freaky, but good.
Okay. I feel like we can talk about specific books that stand out in the categories, but maybe also, I think of authors a lot of the time, like I was saying before, like you can pick up probably any Taylor Jenkins Reid at the beginning. But for thrillers, one of the ones that when I first got back into my reading journey was at the beginning of my journey, kind of like Gone Girl was for you.
Yeah.
Was I read The Wives.
Oh.
And that one was really trippy and psychological and really cool and not super graphic, so not super scary and frightening. But I did really, really like that one. That was a good one for me to get back into the...
Yes. I think I also read that one kind of towards the beginning of my reading journey, and I borrowed it from Aunt Mercedes. Like,
yeah, me too.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I was in Colorado, saw it on her table, and was like, oh, this looks like a good book. She's like, take it. And I was like, okay. And then I gave it back to her at Christmas or something. But
no, you gave it to me at Christmas and I still love it.
Incredible. Good freaking book. Well, yes, I love that book. I have got some Frida McFadden on here. Now, I love Frida McFadden. I really do have a lot of books by her, but I do think she pops out books like crazy.
Yeah.
So sometimes they don't all hit and sometimes they'll fall flat. But the first one I read by her and absolutely was obsessed with was The Housemaid.
Yes.
And that one's so good. I know you've read it.
Yes.
Did I recommend it to you? Or, it was kind of a rage
bunch
for a
of
while.
people recommended it to me, but I actually borrowed it from someone at work.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay. Yeah, The Housemaid's really good. It's like a mini series, honestly. There's 3 books, and there's like a 4th tiny little novella almost.
I haven't read any of the follow-ups, but I want to.
I read the second one's really good. I think it's The Housemaid is Watching. And then the third one, I don't remember what it's called, but I didn't love that one as much. But The Housemaid's so good. She also
It's so good.
Yeah. She also has another one before I move on from Frida McFadden called Never Lie, which I loved, but I audiobooked it, and I would highly recommend anyone who wants to read that one, audiobook it, because it's so good.
Okay.
Never Lie.
I totally concur with The Housemaid, and I feel like Frida McFadden's a really big, popular thriller one. So I would just honestly recommend, if you're thinking of one of her books, just type her name into Goodreads or Fable or something like that and see which ones are highest rated and start from there.
Yeah, I agree.
Another author that I really like for thrillers is Alice Feeney. She's really popular.
yeah.
Rock, Paper, Scissors was one that I read earlier on in my starting to read again, or really just starting to read thrillers, because I didn't ever used to read thrillers very much until the last couple of years. And then I started reading them more because of like you and people in book club, and now I read them probably every like 4th or 5th book. They're really good for a fast-paced breaking up the romance, the fantasy, the intricate plots and worlds and stuff.
It's like a palate cleanser.
So I've read a handful of Alice Feeney's, and I don't know, for me, I do like the thriller genre, but the reason that I break it up a lot more is because I feel like books can run together, and like you were saying with Frida McFadden, some of them fall flat, and I feel like that's because if you've read enough of her, you get her formula.
Yes.
And Alice Feeney's very much similar. Like, if you've read enough of Alice Feeney, then you get her formula, and you start to kind of predict when things are going to happen and at what pace. But I do still think that she's a really, really good thriller author.
She is. It's a fun one. I haven't read too much by her, but I know that you have, so I really like that one. I think that's kind of a lot of my thriller suggestions, and we'll link some of these things. We'll put them on our Instagram as well, but let's move on to our next category.
I was going to say, though, before we move on, we should definitely say Peter Swanson, because you and Mason love him, don't you?
Yes, we love Peter Swanson. How could I not have him on here?
Yes, and he did The Kind Worth Killing, right?
Yes!
And I read that recently, so it was a thriller that I read late. I've been reading thrillers for years, and I still gave it 5 stars.
Oh,
so
yes!
I would highly recommend The Kind Worth Killing, no matter where you are in your reading journey. I thought it was an amazing thriller.
It's a great freaking book.
Yes,
and it's a cool book.
Yes, and I was on the tips of my toes the whole time, so I was still, even though I've read a lot of other thrillers, it did not fall flat or bleed together.
Yay!
Like some of the others. So.
Yeah, it's a very unique book, I feel like.
And last, I'm so sorry, I know you
No, you're totally fine.
The last author I would say that I'm just getting into is Liv Constantine.
Ooh.
Have you heard any of hers?
Yes, I think I just read one by her.
I just read, I think it's The Senator's Wife.
Oh, I read that one because of you.
Yes. Oh, okay, yeah. So I loved it. What'd you think?
I didn't like it as much.
You didn't? Okay.
No, but I think I audiobooked it, so it makes a difference.
Oh, is that the one? Just double checking.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like I said, they bleed together sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one where she has, not MS, she has what Selena Gomez has. Lupus.
Yeah.
That's that one?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, dang, and you didn't like it?
No, I just felt like the whole time I was like, who cares? Like, what? Like, if I thought that I was being poisoned, I would fire them. I would not let them keep working there for 4 or 5, 6, 7 days before I'm like, I think we have to let you go. If I thought I was being poisoned and I thought that someone cut my hair in my sleep, like, get the fuck out of my house.
She tried.
No, she tried too late.
But she also kept thinking, like, oh, is this part of the sickness? Okay, whatever. We don't have to do
Yeah, no, I just get too angry.
Well, Liv Constantine, the reason
Yes.
I started reading her was because I saw Mrs. Parrish's husband or something like that, or
The last
Mrs.
Parrish?
Parrish.
Yeah.
So someone had recommended that. It wasn't ready at the library, so then I found whatever was ready at the library by her, and The Senator's Wife was there, and I really liked it. So I think I'll be reading more of her this year.
Exciting. She's a good writer, and I liked how modern her book was.
Yeah. So I feel like thriller is your big genre, right?
Mm-hmm.
Romance is mine.
Yes.
So romance is the next one we'll talk about. I guess Taylor Jenkins Reid isn't necessarily all romance. She's a little bit of everything. Mm-hmm. But I veer towards certain authors when it comes to romance. Mm-hmm. I'll pick up anything Emily Henry. I've never read an Emily Henry book that I don't give 4 or 5 stars.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and then Christina Lauren, I've just started to get into. She wrote Love and Other Words.
Oh,
is the one I read recently.
Oh, okay.
And it was really good.
Yeah.
But so Christina Lauren, the cute thing about this is apparently it's 2 sisters that co-author.
Oh,
Christina and Lauren.
Yes, I've heard about that.
Yeah, so
we used to talk about that at book club.
Yeah, so I'm reading more of hers lately.
Oh, love that.
And then Lucy Score is a big one. Lucy Score did hers are a little bit more spicy, but Emily Henry's a little spicy too. These are like the least spicy, I would say.
I was gonna say, I can't believe you don't have like a Tessa Bailey on there.
Okay, if you want smut, Tessa Bailey's where you're at.
Or Penelope Douglas.
I think
if you know, you know.
Oh, I don't know.
You don't know.
But Tessa Bailey, I think I just became numb to. So that's why I didn't have
it. It's like you
on
read
here.
too much sex and you're like, all right.
Yeah. It's all the same anymore. But yeah. So, but Lucy Score, she did the Things We Left Behind, Things We Never Got Over.
Yeah.
And then she also did one random one that I read, By a Thread, that I liked as well.
Oh, cute.
And
Okay.
So I've read a handful of hers, really like those.
Nice. I like that one. I don't really mess with romance too much. I think that's what I used to read a lot. So I think that's probably why I don't really enjoy it anymore, because I read a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't know, growing up, or like in high school, I read like After. That's another If You Know, You Know, which you know now because I made you read it.
Yeah, it's bad.
But
don't read
it's
it.
so good. So it's good to like a 16-year-old.
It's One Direction fan fiction that's bad.
It's good. You're being mean. No, I'm just kidding.
That is what oversensitized me to sex, though, because I had to like not read any sensual romance for like months after that.
They are like 500
I was like,
page
oh
books
my
of
god.
just sex.
500 page books, and yeah, every 10 pages there's like some new sexual encounter, very graphic, and usually I'm okay with that, but like pace it out, man.
Yeah, no, they were horn dogs, and I loved it. Well, like I was saying, romance isn't really my category, so I don't have a ton, but except for everything that Morgan has said. But I have read this one romance book that no one will read, and I need somebody to read it and tell me if they love it. But it's called Partners in Crime by Alicia Rai. It's R-A-I, so Alicia Rai, I'm not sure. But I loved this book. This was another one that I audiobooked, and I remember it was super random that I found it. It was just like available on Libby, so I said, okay, I'll read it. And I loved it. It's such a silly book, kind of. But it's got great spice in it and great characters. It's about like these two people who have to go on like this treasure hunt, and they go through casinos and outfit changes, and they're running from people, and it's such a fun action. Oh my god, you should read it. I've talked about it so many times.
I've never heard you talk about this.
Well, it's because nobody listens to me. No, I'm just kidding. It's so good though, and it's one that I highly recommend. I think people don't read it because whenever they look at the cover, it's like this cartoonish cover. But I'm like, no, guys, it's so good. I want people to read it, and the spice is so good.
I love that.
Spice is spicy.
I will definitely read it.
Please do.
I will say on the more dramatic end of romance, I feel like I do recommend Magnolia Parks. If you like drama and kind of like, honestly, toxicity, like Gossip Girl vibes, you know, everybody is doing something that is self-sabotaging all the time.
They're all betraying each other.
Yes, yeah. But if you like drama and romance, Magnolia Parks is a great one. And then I do think if you like drama, and again, if you're at the beginning of your reading journey, Colleen Hoover is good.
Yeah.
I don't read as much of her anymore, but her big ones, It Ends With Us, It Starts With Us, Verity, Layla, like some of those, I feel like those are really drama-y and are really, really good. Her earlier writing, I would veer away from. I've read it, and it still is like quick to read, but it's kind of weird because a lot of it's based on high school students, and it's one of those where I'm like, I'm almost 30, and I don't want to read about 16-year-olds having like,
ew, no, it's too dirty. I'm like, oh my god, put your clothes on.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
So that's the last thing I would say about romance, because we didn't really have like a drama category.
Yeah.
But if you like more drama, a lot of the time that happens in the romance genre. So
Of course.
Yeah. So do we want to do historical fiction?
Yeah.
I was curious, do you read historical fiction?
I don't read historical fiction too much. I feel like the only historical fiction I've really read is from book club.
Book club, yeah.
And when I do read them, I really enjoy them actually. But I think that the only one I've really read on my own, and it's funny because it was part of Mia Mason's book club, but it was Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll.
Okay.
And it's a book that kind of follows the women, not the victims of Jeffrey Dahmer, but the women in the society, and like being scared of him, but also being kind of amazed by him because people are obsessed with him.
Yeah.
And how charming he was and things like that. So it is a very good book, and I think that this was a book that I read, and Mason read it too, and he was like, yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it. And I was like, no, I loved it because it had such a powerful female perspective.
Interesting.
And I love powerful female perspectives. So I would definitely say that's a historical fiction book that I just absolutely loved.
If you love powerful female perspectives and you're looking for historical fiction, I will always recommend Kristen Hanna.
No.
I recommend her anyway if you're looking for historical fiction to break up. This is another category that I don't read often, but it is in the loop, I would say, like every fourth or fifth book, kind of like thrillers. And I'm actually reading one right now, The Rose Code. I got it in our book exchange for a book club. And it's really good. But I did tell Jared today, I was like, yeah, I think I kind of need a break from war books for a while because I've read so many. But Kristen Hanna, most of her books follow a female protagonist or a couple female protagonists.
Yes.
If she has multiple points of views. But I would say if you want something deeper like that, now first of all, this is not like a fast read. Historical fiction, I feel like, is rarely a fast read. This is more if you want something that you
really feel.
Yeah, you can sit with, you can get deep, and get in your feels. And I would say any Kristen Hanna, but especially The Women or The Nightingale,
Yes.
I would recommend as your first historical fiction.
Yes.
100%.
Yes. I read The Women because it was assigned in book club. And I remember being so excited. I think it was Haley's book club choice. But when she was like, okay, we're going to read The Women by Kristen Hanna, I was like, oh, yes, because I've been wanting to read it for so long, but I hadn't because it's kind of a lengthy book.
Yeah.
And I was like, I just don't see myself finishing it if that's for fun.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved that book. I really did. We did do a book club episode on it, so if you're listening and you end up reading that book, go listen to that episode afterwards, and we really deep dive it.
100%. I feel like another big genre that people love these days is fantasy.
Yes, that's like your second most read genre.
Probably so, although fantasy is another lengthy category. Like, usually the books are 400, 500, or more pages, similar to historical fiction. But I was having such a hard time because I read A Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is totally 100% worth the hype. Everybody should read that series.
Morgan fell in love.
And then listen to Halsey at the same time if there's such similar vibes.
Such similar vibes.
Do it, because you're rereading them right now,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Listen to Halsey while you read it. And then, Throne of Glass is the same author. Go read Throne of Glass and listen to Tortured Poets Department by Taylor. Those were the things that I was listening to while I was reading those books. And I still, when I listen to that music, I think about parts of the books.
I love that.
It's so good. But anyway, so I would say if you are a fantasy person or you want to start down the fantasy train, you really, I know that they're trending and all that, but like you cannot go wrong with the Court of Thorns and Roses series or even the Fourth Wing series.
Yeah.
Right now it's a duology, I guess, but there's a third one coming out. So actually,
I think it just came out.
when we were recording this, or like I think it just came out.
Yeah, I think it did.
The pre-order happened, or
Yes.
it released already. I'm not sure, but
I think it was pre-order because I've seen pictures of the book and stuff. like
okay.
that.
So yes, so Fourth Wing would be a good one to pick up, and then you have Iron Flame, and then you got a third one on your way already. So I would definitely recommend them. I don't think that they're overhyped. I was obsessed with them.
Yeah, no, you were.
I want to reread them.
You're always saying that. You're like, I need a book that can give me the same feeling that ACOTAR gave me. And
I specifically lowered my reading goal this year to 60. I read 75 last year. I was like, I'm lowering it to 60 because last year there were so many times I didn't read something like ACOTAR again because I was like, I'm going to have to read an 1,000-page book, and that's obviously going to take me longer than like a 300-page thriller. So, but I wanted to get to that goal. So that's part of why I lowered my goal, because I was like, I want to read books that I really want to read.
Yes, and that's the point of it, and it's just as another amazing reminder that goals are adjustable, and I love that. But with the fantasy, I don't read too much fantasy. I have read like ACOTAR before, but I have a problem with my attention. So like I get really off of it, and the only reason is because books like that, they're only so long because it's building a world.
Yes.
Like with Taylor Jenkins Reid, it's in Hollywood. The world's already built.
Yeah.
But this one, it's a whole it's a whole new area. So I do have a hard time with that. But I don't know if this counts as fantasy, and I feel like I'm also gonna lose street cred with this one. But freaking Harry Potter is so good.
Yes.
I will reread it yearly, and I love them every single time. If you have never read them before, I really recommend it.
Yeah.
You'll kind of be a part of the universe. If you haven't even watched the movies, it's fine. If you have, it's also fine because so much happens in these books that you'll never know. You'll never get the lore if you haven't read the books.
Yeah.
Like there's part about the movies that just won't totally click. But highly recommend them. The first two books are pretty juvenile because he's literally supposed to be like 11. 10 and 11 and like 12. So they don't really start super picking up until about the third, but then freaking you got 7 in total, so you got a lot there. I highly recommend them to everybody.
Yeah, and first of all, they're definitely fantasy, 100%. And then second of all, I read them physically when they were like first coming out, but I also have read them audiobook. And
all of them?
Yes, and I highly recommend doing the audiobook because they have I can't remember what it's called. There's some specific term with audiobook where they have actual like voice actors on.
Is it like the abridgment?
Yes,
What it's called?
abridged,
Yes.
abridged version. They have, the audiobooks are also good because they have like actual character voices.
Yeah, instead of just one person doing everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
and they just, I don't know, it's a warm and cozy thing. And I love a book that I can go watch a movie after.
Me too.
So fun.
Oh, it's so fun. Yeah. So seriously, highly recommend. I know that Mason just read them like last year or something because
Yeah.
I wouldn't shut up, and he loved them.
Yeah.
And,
Also,
like, he's not someone who cares about Harry Potter at all.
Yeah.
Like, he loved them.
also, if you're a parent and you're trying to read more and you have a like a kid, Harry Potter's a great place for you to read something that's interesting to you. You're maybe read with your kid at the same time. I know our parents read a lot of the Harry Potters alongside us. Maybe not like exactly with us. I can't remember. I think I actually did read some of Harry Potter aloud with Mom.
I did
But
too.
yeah, but and I think Chloe Love might have too.
I think she still is.
Yeah, so that's a great one if you have kids and you're wanting to get back into reading, but also kids absorb all of your time.
Yeah.
Put 2 and 2 together and you're golden.
Yes. Agree.
Okay, so I did make a little everyday or like contemporary lit kind of category just because there were a couple books that I felt like didn't fall into the other categories.
Yeah.
I see you don't have any, so I'll just quickly say them. But
Yeah, for
we
sure.
already talked about Taylor Jenkins Reid, but that's where I would put like Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Daisy Jones and the Six. But another one that I really loved when I was first starting to read again, and it was like, it's not romance, it's not fantasy, it's not historical fiction, it's not a thriller. It's just kind of like an everyday vibe.
Yeah. It's almost like mundane life.
Yes, which I think
I love those books.
I like to have a book like that.
Yes. Those are always in my rotation.
Yes, a man called, I think it's Ova or
I
something.
think it's Ove.
Ove.
Man called Ove.
I always said Ove. I didn't realize it was Ove because it's
Really
in
is.
Sweden or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's another one that has a movie too. But I wept at that book.
Oh,
I
yeah.
loved it so much. I thought it was so sweet.
Yeah.
And I know not everybody feels as strongly about those or about it, but I feel like this category can be that way because it is like mundane everyday life. You can read it and it's like a good story, but you don't rate it like super high or whatever. But I did. I gave that one 5 stars and I loved it. I almost got it for a 5-star book exchange this year.
Really?
But it wasn't available when I went to go get it from the bookstore. It wasn't available, so I got Lessons in Chemistry instead, which I would also say is in this category. It's kind of got a historical fiction vibe, but it's not. It's more like, I would say, Daisy Jones, Evelyn Hugo kind of vibe, where it's a woman facing the challenges of being a chemist back in the, I think it's like 50s, 60s or something like that. And there's of course all these like sexist things happening and whatever. But that's another one. There's a television series of it, so you can go watch something after. So I feel like the contemporary lit or those kinds of books make really, really good TV shows and movies.
I agree. With this like contemporary lit category, there's something I love about a middle-aged woman finding herself. And so that's kind of a lot of the books that I'll throw in my rotation here and there. But one I really loved is called Like a House on Fire by Lauren McBrayer. And this was another really super random one I found one day just because it was available. And I actually think Lindsay at Book Club recommended it to me because I was like, guys, I need a book. And she was like, I loved this one. And I loved it. I won't spoil too much, but it is about a middle-aged woman, 2 kids, married for like 20 years. She's starting her career again and kind of just trying to figure out what she likes and figure out what she wants to do with her life. And I just really love books like that. I don't know why, but I just find myself reading them and be like, oh, look at her. Like, she got to escape from just being a mom and a wife, and she got to be herself again. And like, I just love books like that. So I do have tons of those books because I seriously read those like every 3. So if you're looking for a lot of recommendations on that kind of book, definitely let me know. Another one is called Reasons for Avoiding Friends by Megan Leavell. It's like a very similar middle-aged mom finding yourself, becoming friends with other middle-aged women. I don't know what it is, but I love them.
Yeah, no, I like those too, but I feel like they're less commonly recommended, so they're harder to find.
I agree. Go to my Goodreads and you'll find tons.
Yes. Now, a category I read less of, but still read pretty regularly. I don't know if that makes sense. Volume-wise, I don't read as much of it, but I still read it on a frequent basis, if that makes sense. So, nonfiction, I really like memoirs. I feel like I screwed myself because I started with Matthew Perry's and Jeanette McCurdy's memoirs.
Which are two super famous ones.
And both I did audiobook because they read their own, and because they're actors and you know their voices, it hits different, I feel like. So I would highly recommend both of those. I can't remember what Matthew Perry's is called, but Jeanette McCurdy's is I'm Glad My Mom Died, and don't let that fool you. That's not like what the book is about. She's not just sitting there shitting on her mom the whole time. It's a lot more about her relationship with Hollywood, the way that her relationship with her mom affected that, her her mental well-being, all of that. It was so good and just very eye-opening, I think, for me.
Yeah, that's a one that comes highly recommended, and I still have not tried that one out. But I did read the Matthew Perry one after you did, and that one's called Friends, Lovers, and the Big Terrible Thing. And that one is really good. I am a Friends lover, so I was super excited to listen to it, and I was like, oh my god, like, Matthew Perry is so different from Chandler Bing. So that was a crazy realization, but after I read that one, I was kind of on the look for more memoirs because I've never really done those before. And I found one that I don't think it's going to be everyone's cup of tea, but I loved it. And it's called Well, This Is Exhausting by Sophia Benoit, I think is how you say her name. And it is just a book. She's like mid-30s. I just love my mid-30s apparently. And she just kind of talks about her life growing up, and she kind of touches on like eating disorders and relationships and sex and career and just like a bunch of things. She does get kind of woke for a little bit, but if you can get past the wokeness, then you can get really just back in there. Honestly, when I was reading it, I felt like it was like a big therapy session. She was saying things that I haven't said or like that I feel but don't tell people, and I was like, I just loved that book. So it's definitely one that I recommend. Again, she gets woke, but as long as you're fine with that, then it gets pretty good.
I'm going to add it to my list to read. I feel like I'm so happy because you brought up so many books that you're like, I absolutely love this book. And I'm like, I've never heard you mention this book, but now it's going to be on my list.
Yay!
So I'm definitely going to go to my Goodreads, and you can also log on Goodreads like what you want to read. I'm sure on Fable you can too. But I am going to go and put a lot of these on my want to read.
Yeah.
Also in the nonfiction category is more of like the self-help personal development. You all know we love Atomic Habits.
Shout it from the rooftops.
We've talked about it so many times. I've also mentioned Everything is Figure Outable by Marie Forleo on the podcast before. I really love that one. And then You're a Badass. There's a bunch of those. Like there's You're a Badass at Making Money. There's just You're a Badass by itself.
Yeah.
You're a Badass Every Day is one that I really like because mainly the way that I use personal development or self-help books is I have it in my morning routine. So you can go back to my morning routine with a Morning Bird episode. But I do like 5 to 10 minutes, 10 pages, something like that, of personal development in the mornings, and it just kind of helps reset my mind and put me in a good headspace for the day. But I always like to have something on hand. Brittany from Book Club just gave me the 12-week year, which is... Is that right? 12-week year? Okay, yeah. And that one is more like business probably focused or productivity kind of work focused. So it still I think will be really good to complete, but I like to have one of those in rotation at all times. And I have reread Atomic Habits and You're a Badass Every Day and Everything is Figure Outable so many times that I was like, I need something different. So those are the ones that I would recommend for like personal development, self-help. Do you do much of those?
I really don't, but I would love to do that because Atomic Habits like changed my life, so I would absolutely love to. I really want to read one. It's by, his name's like, I'm gonna sound so stupid probably, but his name's like Charles Duhigg or something, and I think it's called The Power of Habits. And that's how...
Maybe I've read that one.
Here, yeah, let's look it up. Oh, okay, yeah. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is actually... He, like, introduced and started habits, and then James Clear with Atomic Habits was, like...
Structured them and...
Yeah, he's like... Charles Duhigg came up with the cycle and, like, the habit loop, but we're gonna, like, build on it from there.
Okay.
So I really want to read that one and just kind of see what I can learn from it, but, yeah, Atomic Habits is really just the one I've absolutely adored.
Yeah. I love personal development. Whenever I was more active in the coaching community with Body or Beachbody, that was one of the things that they were like, if you can do nothing business building in a day, just do the personal development 10 minutes each day. And it got me in a really good habit of doing it, because if you're working on growing and learning yourself, other people are going to be like inspired by that, or it just automatically gives you something to say to people, or gives you something to, I don't know, it just puts you one step further than you were yesterday.
It like gives you something to work on.
Yeah.
Gives you something to aspire to. Self-help is incredible.
Yeah, so it got me really in a good habit of this way, like years and years ago, and kind of on accident, to be honest. And so I feel like I've read a lot of audiobooks and a lot of like physical books in the morning, because in the morning I do physical. Yeah. But then if I'm going to work or something, I'll do audio. But anyway, so I feel like I got in a good habit of that. But I highly recommend it, especially if you are in your 20-somethings and wanting to do something cool with your life. I don't know. I feel like they're just inspiring, you know?
Yeah, I love that. I'll have to hop on your Goodreads and see some of the ones that you've read.
Yeah.
Like, want to read.
Well, the 5-star ones I already said here, but I think that wraps it up. We could talk about books all day, probably.
I was going to say, it's probably going to be one of our longer episodes, just because it's so easy to talk about books.
It is,
That's something I love about books.
Yes, but we will have some... probably like Instagram Reels, TikToks, kind of summarizing some of these things, recommendations. And then also, I was thinking that we could share like the monthly book tracker things.
Oh, yeah.
So that if somebody wants to share on Instagram their monthly book tracker, we'll have a template for you.
Oh, cute.
On our highlights reel.
Yes, I need to start doing that again.
Yes. I really like the ones that instead of having the book square, because you don't know how many books you're going to read until you in the month. Right. I really like the ones that have the bookshelves.
Oh, those are cute.
You know, so that you can just like copy paste or whatever, and 3 books could fit there or 2 books could fit.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll make some of those book trackers. If you want to track with us this year, we would love to see what you're reading, see what you're recommending, and what you're jiving with. And we will also add our Goodreads in the show notes, and we'll post it on Instagram.
Yeah. I think that about covers everything. And yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this episode and got some good recommendations and got to add some things to your list. And I hope you got hyped up about reading, because we are obviously very hyped up about reading.
Woo!
And that's like real. We're not faking it. That's real. We love reading.
Yes, please share with others who maybe are wanting to work on their book goals. Maybe this is your time to be accountable and send it to somebody and be like, hey, I have a goal to read 1 book a month this year. I want you to help me with that. This podcast was a good place to start for me.
You know, it would be a fun idea.
Yeah.
If you were to well, I'm going to tell you. If whoever's listening to this sends it to their friend and says, hey, let's read 1 book each month and pick it from, like, one of the categories that we talked about.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
And then let us know what you think.
Yeah, let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could essentially do 1 or 2 from each category. Like,
and cover you through the year.
Yeah.
Boom, baby.
All right, cool. Well, hopefully you guys love this episode. Please share it with friends and loved ones who you think would benefit from it.
And
cheers!
Talk to you guys next week.
Oh, yeah.
Cheers!
Cheers!